Hi, this is Panda Consulting ArcGIS Workshop, and I'm Frank Conkling. With this workshop, what we're going to do is we're going to look at working with polygons in ArcGIS Pro. And this is sort of a continuation of our last ArcGIS workshop in which we dealt with working with lines inside of ArcGIS Pro. We're going to explore a little bit some of the tools that are available, some of the techniques and functions that we're going to be working with, and just sort of play around and see what works and how we can learn to do more things now with these new tools. Before we do that, though, just want to real quickly go through, and if you have any questions about Panda Consulting, who we are, what we do, please feel free to go out to our website at www.pandaconsulting.com. You'll see who we are. You'll see that we are, in fact, in our 25th year now. Also, there is an events page, which will list in a calendar view all the events coming up. You'll see the workshops that are coming up together with all the conferences that we might be at. We also can go and find that on the workshop page, in which it gives you a linear list, and it will allow you to go and look at some of the things that have been recorded before. In addition to that, we do have a YouTube page, and on that YouTube page, we actually go and post all of the recordings and everything that we have before. And please make sure you go out there. You'll see that there's probably at least 70 different workshops, each of them averaging about an hour, some as long as an hour and a half, 2 hours, but some even a little bit shorter. And it covers most things that you deal with when you're looking at ArcGIS Pro, editing in ArcGIS Pro, and just the ArcGIS parcel fabric. So today, we're going to look at dealing with parcels in here, dealing with polygons in ArcGIS Pro. And this is standard ArcGIS Pro. Nothing special about these. These are pure, simple features that we're dealing with. We have no attribute rules. We have no configurations, nothing. This is just out of the box, as simple as you can get. But we did want to go and explore some of these tools because there are changes between ArcGIS Pro and ArcMap. So the first thing I want to do, and this is one that I've introduced several times before, but this one I love, is the fact that within ArcGIS Pro, you can now see and symbolize where the vertices are on any single, in this case, let's look at polygons. And in order to do that, what we'll do is we'll go and we'll right click on the layer, go to Symbology, and over under Symbology, we'll explore further. And let's go to here, excuse me. Let's go back here. Go to the Properties tab and go to the overall structure. And on the structure, let's add a marker layer. Now, what that marker layer will do, we'll add a temporary layer that we're now going to go and set up under the Layers tab. On the Layers tab, we'll click on that, and then we'll go down and we'll say, let's make this maybe a bright red, and we'll make it maybe 5 points. But more importantly, we'll scroll down further to the marker placement and tell it to place these markers on the vertices, and you can see where the markers go. So let's go back up here. Instead of outline, let's make this here and apply this, and we now will see that every place there is a vertex on our polygons, we will now display this small dot marker and allow us to see them. This is something that we could never do in ArcMap. We only do it while we were editing, and we had to hold down the V key, and it would show us all our vertices within 500 pixels. But again, it wasn't permanent. This is permanent, and one of the reasons why we like it. All right. So how do we go in here, and how do we start creating a polygon in here? And by default, we're just going to use, and we're going to start with some of the simple feature templates. And we have the create polygon feature template. And again, I'm going to snap to the vertex, and I'm just going to snap around. I'm not using any constraints in here. And I can go ahead and hit finish, and it will go and finish it for me, selecting it when I'm done. Again, very, very simple functions on here. I'm not going to, if I want to, I can go down here and I can say, well, let's go and use a constraint, maybe a bearing and a distance on here, in which case it will capture the distance that I have rubber band out, or excuse me, capture the direction, and then I can tell it to go and put it out at 1,000 feet. Excuse me, let's undo that. And let's again go to direction and distance, and let's put it out 1,000 feet there. And again, to sort of show you that when you're constructing a polygon, you can use the constraints and it will help you to go and build it on here. Now, one of the things that's really nice is that in addition to this, there's also the ability to go and build a polygon using the traverse tool. Now, the traverse tool allows you to go and build features that are constrained with COGO values. And in this case, we're going to do sample polygons, and we're just going to tell it to go and start at any one point here. And we can begin to go and input the values for the COGO values. So in this case, let me do north 45 degrees east using a quadrant bearing shortcut. Put it in here, then do 1,500 feet, and I hit enter. And in fact, that side, that next vertex is defined as being north 45 degrees east and 1,500 feet from that previous, or from the starting point in here. I can now just, again, to go and show you southeast 50 degrees for 2,000 feet. I can go in and define the polygon boundary. However, it's important to remember that if I use the traverse tool to go and define the polygon boundary, it does not get stored anywhere at all. There's nothing that goes and keeps those values as part of that polygon. Whereas if I use COGO values against a line, it stores the COGO values on the line, but there's nothing built into the polygon that allows you to go and do that. So let me just quickly go in and finish this by doing a deflection of 90 degrees for 1,500 feet. And I'm going to go and tell it to go ahead and finish this. Now, if I had wanted to, one of the things I could do is I could tell it to go ahead and store that traverse file out. So for example, I could have told it to go and export out my traverse file into an ArcMap parcel fabric, or excuse me, into an ArcMap traverse file. And I could then go and recall it. Matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little trick here that we'll often do, is if maybe you have a polygon here that you have this shape for, but you don't know what the actual bearing, or you don't know what any of the actual lines are that was used to create this. So I'm going to go in here and, oh, it won't let me go and trace lines. It only let me trace the lines in here for that when I'm doing a line polygon. Let me see, when I click the lines, the trace lines turns on, but polygons, it does not let me do that. So we're not going to be able to go and do that trick, but it would allow you to trace the lines, and it would record what values were stored against them. And then again, you could go and store the traverse file. However, let's continue with this. Let's move on beyond the traverse. Let's just remember that when you build a polygon with a traverse file, or with using traverse, it does not store those values anywhere. All right, let's go back to create now, and I'm going to create this, but this time I'm going to use a tool called Autocomplete Polygon. Now, with the Autocomplete Polygon, what it does, it allows you to draw lines. In this case, I'm going to draw a line here and draw a line here, and it captures existing features here, and it will go and fill in between those features. So literally, it will go and take the space next to where I clicked and use that to construct a new polygon. So in this case, let's just pretend that this is a roadway, that we want to capture a polygon for it. We don't have to go and start and actually trace that roadway. Instead, we can use the autocomplete and just starting inside a polygon here, click, click, and let's do another one here. And there is a finish the part if we wish to do that, and then go back here and go over and close this off and finish this. And this will go and create a polygon that exactly follows the boundary of any existing polygons in that area. All right. This is a nice little trick used for creating roads or alleys or spaces between existing features on the same layer. It only works against features on the exact same layer. That's what we're doing. Why do I start inside? Tamara, that's a good question. So the reason why I started inside is with many of the tools inside of both ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, you want to make sure that you're starting inside a feature before you start. Let me go and sample this again. So if I were to start here and go and do this and just miss that, all right, and I say finish, all right, it will tell me that it didn't complete it because it didn't cross over the beginning and ending point on an existing feature for the autocomplete. But on autocomplete, if I start inside and then go out and then cross over the boundary, it will then go and use that intersection of that existing feature boundary and use that to start and define on there. So Tracy's also asking, by the way, I'm sorry we don't have a moderator today. Do we have any tips for when you're in the middle of a long traverse, but you have a call to a corner of the PLSS that doesn't have a bearing and distance on it, then nothing in the traverse? It's a good question. Let me go and show you what happens. If we go in here, let's go into traverse again. And let's do traverse on lines just so we can see how this actually goes. So if I go and start out and I'm going to do north and I'll do 1,500 feet over here. And then I believe Tracy's asking me a question. What happens if I have a call over to another point and I need to capture that value? How do I figure out what that value is? There's a couple ways of doing it. I can turn on my constraints to go and show me what the values are for deflections and attributes, but I'm not even going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go and show you a better trick so that if I have a point that I wish to know what the values are, and I'm in the middle of a traverse, if I go over and I snap and left click on that, what will happen is that it will actually capture the bearing. It should capture the bearing. I don't know why it didn't do that. I want to make sure I'm in the right thing here. Let me start this. I think I've got a 2-point line here is what it is. So let me go and start a sample line. Let me do this. Let me figure out now on here, 2-point line. And oh, this is not Kogo enabled. That's why it wasn't capturing that bearing on here. Sorry about that. But if in fact this was Kogo enabled, matter of fact, let me see, do I have Kogo lines in here? we're getting off a little bit here. I do not have Kogo lines here. So let's just go back to here. Let's go back to the traverse. And again, let's start again. So if I'm in the traverse and I have Kogo enabled lines, if I click on a line, it will capture, using the brackets, it will capture and mark the bearing and distance of that line that I went and digitized. And it surrounds it by brackets to denote this is a digitized value. This is not a valid Kogo value on here. All right. And it will allow you to go and capture to any point that you click upon. And that'll be for the direction and for the distance. Now, if it turns out that you want to use that value in the traverse, if you click on that cell and then just hit return, it will go and mark it as not digitized anymore, but rather a true value you want to store. Same way with the distance. This was a digitized value. If I click on the cell and then I hit enter, it then becomes a valid value for me. So, all right, sorry about that distraction on here, but all right, let's go back here. So let's go back now to that whole thing about creating a polygon and using autocomplete. Again, autocomplete, there's multiple tools inside of here, things like reshape, autocomplete, all these. You want to make sure that you click in the feature or somewhere where it's going to intersect that feature. All right. And then you want to intersect that boundary of that feature. And then I double click. In this case, it did not. I was not inside. Look at that. I'm learning things also. So if I'm inside of here, then it will go and take it back and just auto-complete it to the edge of that existing feature on there. All right. So again, nice tool. It actually was in ArcMap, and it's very, very useful, especially if you have a lot of areas that you want to connect up to and make sure that you build a polygon that matches the values inside of there. It will go and match all of that for you. All right. Polygons autocomplete. So let's go and turn these lines off for a minute. And let's go in here and just show you that once we have a polygon, we can define a couple things about it. We can say, well, let's go in here and let's right click and let's edit the vertices of this polygon. And it will allow me to go and move a vertex and save it. Now, if I go in here and edit the vertices of this one polygon and I move it, what will happen is it will move that one, but not the others, unless I tell it to have map topology turned on. So let's undo that edit. Let's go back here and turn map topology on. And now let's go and edit this vertex and have it go and store that in there. And of course, it didn't do that. Let me see if I can move. If I move this vertex, excuse me, get out of here. And if I move this parcel, with topology turned on, I can see there are topology lines being constrained out. So that as I'm moving that, it goes and allows me to go and make that change on here. Matter of fact, if I go in here and do a move, because I'm not working with edges yet, I'm still working with simple map topology. What happens if I move this, and again, there's no point here, but if I move this and say, go ahead and accept that, it will move it. And what happens if I go and move it to someplace that breaks the topology? And as I move my cursor and I move my feature around, watch these little lines in here and what's going to happen. And as I move them across, suddenly the lines disappear and it gives me an error up here, a warning up here, and says it will cross other features. So as long as Map Topology can keep those connections, it will. But if I move it so that it crosses another feature, it won't allow me to go and use those any longer. And it will go and break it at that point there. So if I go in here again and with simple polygons with nothing other than that one vertex there, and if I move just the vertex, it's going to break the topology. But if I move the overall feature and I have Map Topology turned on, everything will come around. So again, editing vertices is not the best way to go and make sure that things move. So what do you do? Well, one of the things you can do is you could use something like a line feature. An align feature, and this is quite a bit out, but a line feature will allow you to go and draw a new line and tell it what the new boundary is of that line. And then it will redefine where all the points are going to be. So it will allow you to go and redefine the edges of a polygon as I'm going, and any vertex that appears inside of that tolerance that I have, in this case, this is really blown up, is because, so any vertex will get drawn to the path that I draw. Now, it doesn't necessarily take a vertex and connect it point to point. Rather, what it does is it moves the individual vertices perpendicular to the path. Vertice perpendicular to the path. So if I go in here and do this, it's redefined it here, but it hasn't done any change in there. All right. So editing the vertices allows me to change the shape of a polygon. When I move a polygon, if I have Map Topology turned on, it will allow me to go and modify any existing polygon that's it understands as being connected to a polygon. But if I do an edit vertices on the individual vertex, I can go and break that topology even with it turned on. All right, so let's look at a couple other options here. So if I have this one polygon here and I wish to go and cut it or split it, there's a tool called a split tool. All right, that split tool here. And that split tool has some major options on it, but the one that you want to look out for is this one here at the bottom. And ArcGIS Pro has a lot of tools with this option at the bottom. Allow me to split without a selection. Let's first split it with a selection. In this case, I'm going to do it interactively, and I'm going to draw a line from here to here. In this case, I started inside of another one, and I said, go ahead and split it, and it will go and split that polygon by where that line was drawn. However, if I go and turn this off and say, split polygons, and I draw a line here to here, double click to finish, it will go and split every polygon in which my interactive line went all the way through the polygon that I drew. Okay, so with allow split without a selection, it allows you to go and make splits in here, even as long as you're going through those options there. There's another option here called split by feature. So if I go in and turn these lines back on, and let's go and create a new line here. All right, and create a line. And again, we're just going to create a regular line through here. And I'm going to draw this line. And that will be my selected line. And now I'm going to go to my split. And in this case, I'm telling it to split it by a feature. My input feature is the selected line that I'm going to go and split. The target feature allows me to go and select what polygon I wish to split. All right. So in this case, it's going to use my selected line, my input feature, and it's going to go and split my target feature from this and goes and splits them out. Go and show you. So how would we use that? So if in fact for example, we have parcels that lie along a hydrologic feature, a river or something, we could select the river as being the actual input feature and select the polygons, the parcels that adjoin it as being the target features, and tell it to split all the parcels wherever that river ran through them, and it would split them up. Now, it splits it. It doesn't go and change the actual geometry other than creating a new feature in there, a new polygon in there. But it does create a new one that you can then go and delete off if that's not what you want. But perhaps that's not what you want to do. Maybe what you want to do instead is not a split, but perhaps you want to do a reshape. Now, reshape allows you to go and reshape it without selecting a feature, all right, in which you can reshape it by the edge. And I can go and tell it to go and reshape it using this edge here. And if you'll note, what I'm doing here is I'm going in here and telling it to go and take that polygon and reshape this as I'm going. It's going to change that. And it's going to use that for reshaping. And let me go back here and see. By the way, I've never used this feature. So I know how to do it with this. In this case, I go and I actually reshape it by drawing a new feature in here. And I tell it, let's just go here, just do this roughly here, and it will go and reshape it. Now, interestingly, on a reshape, you often might reshape it. And in this case, it assumed that I wanted to keep the edge or the side of this that had the more polygons, the larger side, and get rid of this. I can instead tell it, when I reshape, let me choose which side to keep. So I can go in here and say, well, let's use this as my edge that I'm going to shape on. And then it'll allow me to go and pick which side I want to keep. So in this case, maybe I want to go and select this side. So it will allow me to choose which side I want to keep, rather than letting the software assume that I want to keep the larger size. So reshape allows you to have that option, especially if you're going to do it just a sort of a sketch or just a interactive reshaping. It allows you to go and do that on here. On the edge, is select the edge that you wish to reshape, maybe this one, and maybe this. I still am not quite sure how to go and do this. Interesting. Change my selection to this. And then, is that it? Nope. Still can't figure out how to do that. All right. Let's move on to another thing then. So let's go and take and let's go and break some of these again. Let me go and select the polygon. Let me go and right click and do edges or edit the vertices. Let's go and move this. Let's go and take this one and let's go and move this vertex here. Okay, so we've gone and broken some of those edges in here. So how do I fix something like this? How do I fix something where I've got a lot of components in here that don't quite match what I want them to match? There's a couple ways of doing it. First is I could go in here and select this and remove this over. In computer programming, we used to call this bit nibbling, which is the smallest possible unit that you're going in there and working on. I don't want to do that. I want to go and do something with a little bit more intelligence on here. So I'm going to take this polygon and I'm going to reshape it. Now, I'm going to reshape it not by the edge, but by the feature. And in this case, I'm going to start inside. I'm going to snap here. I'm going to snap here. And I'm going to snap to here and snap again to here. So I actually went and reshaped that polygon to match the existing one by just drawing what the new boundary should be. And go in and move it to another polygon. I'll do a reshape again. And notice I'm making sure that I cross that boundary at all times so that it will go and identify what polygon I wish to go in and change and where I want that new polygon to be. So in this case, I reshaped it. The reshape polygon is actually a nice tool, especially if you've got this allow selection without. All right. So I got back to here. So I did this reshape of this edge here, but there's other components on here. I have another tool here called Align Edge. Align Edge uses Map Topology. And by the way, I'll prove it to you. If I turn off Map Topology, Align Edge is no longer available. So I need to at least have Map Topology turned on and do an Align Edge. And it identifies every edge on here and allows me to go and align them. And when I go and move over an edge, you'll see that it goes and symbolizes that area. The area that I'm on top of with the cursor is a solid design. The area that it's going to move it to is a dashed design or a dashed line. So when I click on this, it will go and move it over to that dashed line. So in this case, let me do it again. And this time I'm going to go and go here, and it will go back to the closest edge. Let's undo that again. And you note it only took it from this point over. Same way here. When I take it here, it will go and put that all out to here. So you want to be very careful what edge you're actually selecting on when you're going and doing this. Let me go and show you another issue that you've got to have. You have to be really aware of this, is that if you're using Align Edge, what can happen is that I can tell it to go and take an edge of a polygon and actually go and close it down onto itself. So in this case, I'm telling it to go and take this edge and realign it to the existing edge of it. And watch what happens. It will say, nope, it's a failure. By the way, in ArcMap, I could do that, and I could actually destroy the complete symbology and the complete integrity of existing polygons when using Align Edge. So just be careful with that. Interesting thing here is that the edges are defined not just by polygons, but by map topology. So in this case, I have, and let me go and turn off map topology for a minute, and just so we can see, I have polygons and I have lines on here. So if I turn map topology on and go to Align Edge again, it goes and analyzes all these. So I can actually tell it to take that line and move it so it goes and it's now coincident with my polygon boundary, or conversely, I can tell and take this polygon boundary and tell it to move So it moves, and it's coincident with this line and this line. So I can redefine the boundaries of the polygon in that way. Again, pay attention to what you're doing, but there's pretty amazing things what you can do in attempting to go in and fix spaces, gaps, overlaps between polygons in here. All right, map topology will go against any feature. Let's turn this off and turn this on again. Any feature that is displayed at the moment. So if you have lines that you wish to go and make sure you redefine so that they fit against it, you can go ahead and redefine those and use that to help you. All right. Let me go in and auto split. So I showed you a split. What happens with a divide? So if I have a divide here, I can actually go to my divide tool. Now, divide is actually very interesting because the divide tool allows you to go and divide it into either proportional areas. In this case, let's say I want to go and divide it into 2 equal areas on here. And then all I have to do is tell it which side I wish to do. So in this case, maybe I wish to go and divide it from here. So it will go and create 2 equal area or proportional areas in here. Let's go and click on another boundary. Let's click on that one instead. It will create 2 proportional areas on here and divide that into 2. All right. Or I can go in here and tell it to do 2 equal areas, or I can define the area that I want. In this case, maybe I want, by the way, it's telling me this is 94 acres. Let's say I want to take 30 acres off of this. I can go in here and tell it which side I wish to take 30 acres off of. Again, I can tell it a side that I wish to take it off of. Now, if you're paying attention, you recognize one of the things that it only does, it only goes and works against an individual straight line. So in here, I tell it a straight line, it will go and work against a straight line, and it sort of slides that line until it calculates what the area is. I could also go, if none of these lines match where I want it to be, I could tell it to match this line, and it'll go and use this line and calculate 30 acres off of it on there. So let's just go and use this boundary here and do 30 acres off of here. So I can do it into 2 proportional areas. I can do it into a specific area that I wish to go and do, or I can do it for a specific width. So I can tell it that I want this to be 1,000 feet wide, and I only want one of those. So I can choose which boundary I want to go from. In this case, let's go and do 2 of them, and it will show me 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet. And this is the divide tool against a polygon boundary. All right. Divide tool against a polygon boundary. So, interesting way to go in and split these things up, to go and figure out how to go and divide them. You could divide them using a split line. You can divide them by going and using proportional area. You can divide them by equal area, where you define the amount of acreage or area that you want in those divisions. Or you can divide them by equal width, in which you define how wide you want each of them to be, not caring about the actual area in here. These are all really, really nice ways of doing this, but there's still more tricks. So what happens if I wanted to go and take, for example, 1,000 feet off of the outer boundary of some of this parcel here? So I can do this not by using the divide tool, but rather I could do this by using a split tool on here. And the split tool, I can then go and not use a feature, but interactively. I'm going to show you how to draw a line, but have that line have a trace on it. So, excuse me, have an offset. So if I use the trace function and I start here and I right click, as soon as I start my trace function and tell it I want the options for the trace tool, and I want to trace it with an offset. And in this case, I want 1,000-foot offset on here. All right. And now it will go and trace with 1,000-foot offset. Let me go and start this again. Trace. Did I put 1,000 feet in here? Let's go to trace. Start here. Let's click on offset 1,000 foot. Maybe let's make this less than that. Let's do it 100 feet. Be easier for us to see. All right, so we start again, split, start here, and trace. As I zoom in, you can see that it's probably going to be tough to see, but there's actually a line here, which actually goes and defines how far over I am. Let's start here again. And let's start here. The trace. And let's go all the way up. And let's go all the way around to here. And then let's continue out and go parallel here. So I can go and split that using the trace tool. By the way, there's a little indent here. I didn't realize that it went and actually traced over that. So the trace tool, remember, it allows you to go and not just trace along a line, but trace on an offset of that line. All right. The trace tool, once you start it, you can either hit O for the offset, in which you tell it that you want to do an offset, or you can right click and go to trace offsets. Really nice tool when you're doing it with the trace, with the split, you can then go and trace something off of the top. So in this case, maybe you have a parcel that's got 10 feet coming off of it. You can then go and do that by tracing the boundary with a 10-foot offset, and it will automatically go and follow the geometry of that boundary. All right. What else can we do here? Let's reshape a line. So what happens if I want to go and take a parcel and merge them back together? We've talked about splitting parcels up to this point, but what happens if we want to go and merge them together? So I'm going to go in and select all of these polygons in here. And let's go and add this one back in again. So I have these 3 polygons and go to the merge tool. So merge looks like very simple, but there's some really interesting things on here again. I continue to be amazed by how much Esri has thought about this. The developers have really thought what we want to do and how we want to do it. And recognize that on this option right now, I've got, even though it seems like, oh, I want to merge it into an existing one. If I do this, it will merge it and it will take that one that I have and replace it with this new one. Well, what happens if I don't want to do that? What happens if instead I wish to go and take that geometry and create a new one on top of the existing ones? I can do it into a new feature. And if I had multiple polygons on here, polygon feature classes, let's go and add that on here. So let's have here, we have other polygons on here. Let's go and add that to our current one here. Let's put this below here. So now I can go and take these polygons from my sample polygons And I can put them into a new feature, and I can tell them, no, let's go and put them, by the way, it's got to start with the merge. Go back to merge now that I have it on here. They're in a different data set, aren't they? No, I should be able to go and edit that. Anyway, I could merge this onto a different Polygon feature. Here it is, a different here. I could go merge it here onto this other Polygon feature class. So I could say merge them from this parcel, from this layer, the selected polygons, and merge them into a new polygon on this other layer. So again, existing feature does it on the existing layer, takes all the polygons that you have selected, merges them together. New feature allows you to go and put it either onto the same layer with on top of the others, or allows you to go and put it onto a different layer on here. So let's go in and put it onto this other layer just so we can prove that. It doesn't have Z values. Thank you very much. On here, Z values. Let's make sure we put Z values in here. Okay, let's merge this into a new on here. This thing has a Z values on it. And it won't let me do that. So, but it would allow me to go and do it onto this new layer and create that. All right, let's go and remove that. So it happens when you don't have predefined demos just off the top of the head. All right. So merge, again, seems like a real simple function, but again, Esri has really thought through and says, okay, we can merge them onto the same ones, or we can merge them onto a new one. Let's go and do that. Merge it onto a new one here. So now let's turn off map topology so we can drag that into a different area. And let's move that one polygon here. So now I can see that I have a new polygon here that has the same geometry as the exterior of that other polygon. And I still have my old existing polygons already in here untouched. So the merge function with the polygons, again, allows you to do a lot of different things. Allows you to go and create new polygons on here. All right, let me look over and see if we have any chats or any questions or any comments on here. Nope. I think that we've just about covered it. Again, we covered things such as we can go and create new polygons using just the regular digitizing. Let's go and connect up to here, to here, to here, to here. We can create a new one by digitizing, autocomplete. We can go and connect up to an existing polygon and have it that. Autocomplete, by the way, is also useful if we have gaps and we wish to go and fill them in and identify them. We can then go and select that adjoining one and merge it into an existing feature. And here's the existing feature and merge it in there. That's sort of a backwards way of doing it. We could use aligned edges the same way just to go and do it. We talked about creating a polygon with a traverse and some of the advantages and disadvantages of that. The fact that it doesn't store the COGO anywhere is one of the things that you want to be aware of. We talked about splitting polygons. We talked about dividing polygons, what the difference is. The split will go and split it up, divide. You have a little bit more constraints and you can tell it exactly how you want to divide it. Reshaping. Oh, one that I completely forgot about is this replace geometry. So if I have something selected and I have replace geometry, I can then go in here and do a new, and it goes and takes whatever I have selected and completely replaces the geometry of one with the other. So again, replace geometry, allow me to go and put new geometry in here. And when I do that, it will take whatever I have selected, take all the attributes of it, and replace the geometry associated with that feature with whatever my new geometry is. So again, let me go and do this. I can give it new geometry, and it will go and replace my selected geometry for that one feature, replace it with the new geometry that I've gone and put in place there. Yeah, I think we basically covered much of what I wanted to go and talk about. The only thing we haven't done is clip. Let's go ahead and show you a clip. If I go and take this, I have no topology right now, and put it on here. I have one on here. Let's go and show you what the clip does. In this case, let's go and clip it. Again, clip is one of those things where there's a lot of options. I'm going to clip this, and I'm telling it in this case, clip everything that's editable. So everything that's turned on and editable, it will go and clip. So I'm going to turn off my lines. And I'm going to say, take whatever is inside that area that's going to intersect and discard it from my existing features. Or I can tell it to preserve it, which is really just a split, using this as the feature for it. Or I can tell it to delete everything that's outside the clip, in which case it would delete everything else out there, except for what's inside of here. Or I can just tell it to split it and preserve both. In this case, let's just discard it and tell it to go ahead and clip it out. So now let's clear this. Let's take this again. We don't have topology turned on. And let's go and move this so we can see what's going on. And sure enough, it has gone and clipped everything out of what it was on top of. All right. So that's the one other thing is we can go and clip it and move that. Let's go and do one more thing here. Let's undo the clip here. Let's take it. No. And let's undo this move. Let's go to select. And let's take this one here and select that and do a clip on it. But this time, we're going to tell it to go and delete everything outside of what we have selected. And we told it to clip everything else on here. So theoretically, it's going to take everything and remove it all. All right. So be aware of your options. Be aware of what it's going to do. Again, that clip right there is when I told it to go and delete everything that was not contained inside of it. So maybe I had a bigger county, or maybe I had a bigger polygon. I wanted to get rid of everything that's outside that polygon. You could use a clip against that and it will get rid of it. Hopefully you learned something today. And thank you for joining me. And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thanks for attending, and we hope you enjoyed this workshop. If you have questions, would like some more details about anything we discussed during this workshop, or if you or anyone at your organization would like information about training, support, or ways in which we can help you with your GIS needs, please contact me at frank@pandaconsulting.com or call me at 561-691-3277, and we can discuss how we can help you with your needs.